You know what I used to do for fun when I was younger? Drive away. I used to drive away from everything. And then I'd also go and daydream about about doing something else, about being another person, to be honest. I mean, I had this habit of when I was in high school not wanting to stay at home and just driving around for the sake of driving around, being in my car, being in a comfort zone away from other people. And then in college, because that's just a bunch of you're away living with a bunch of people and there's people constantly all the time. I also drove around kind of aimlessly. And I remember my roommate once told me, she's like, me and my boyfriend saw you driving, you turned a corner, then we saw you again. So she caught me in the act of driving around aimlessly trying to run away. And I still kind of do it. I would do it in between, like on my breaks from work. I'd also do it on my even now, like sometimes even if I'm not driving away from a place, it's like I use driving because I just need to be, I don't know, I need, I guess the world to look like it's racing, just like my mind. I don't know. But anyway, I found that was one of many coping mechanisms I had to sort of come back to myself after abandoning myself a lot. And all right, in this episode, we're going to talk about that self-abandonment. Hello, welcome back to my podcast. My name is Ariel. I'm in my car. And you know what? A lot of the times I actually record this podcast on my phone in my car. I just got one of those portable mics, so we'll see how much better that quality is. But I gotta say, not to toot my own horn here, but maybe I should because that's what I'm trying to learn now. But I feel like my voice still sounds pretty clear and great and has good quality even on this phone, just because of the way I'm enunciating or whatever. So even though sometimes I'm not as great. But anyway, not to take from myself, today is all about the self. And, the past couple of episodes, I'd be talking about, I hate people this, I'm so angry, I've been abused, is it called abuse, is that fair, should I care about them, blah, 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 take back your energy. So I'm kind of going through this really good sort of process of, and I guess sort of the order of all these episodes are very timely for the progression of my healing, because I, have started to get rid of the focus on other people's energies, and now I'm bringing it back on me. And so a lot of the times, when you have to deal with difficult people, not only do you always have to defend yourself, but sometimes you abandon yourself. And unfortunately, in a few different ways, a lot of my life, a lot of the sort of personality I developed, a lot of the habits I developed were out of survival and pretty much weren't intentional enough where I feel happy about who I was or who I am right now, really. I have said before that for many years, I'd always think I'll be happy once I'm finally myself. And that's such a sad thing to say, because it's just be happy with yourself now. Don't have expectations. Don't be a perfectionist. But the deeper meaning of that was actually, I'll be happy when I stop self-abandoning, when I stop living for other people, when I'm finally just living for me and it's about me. And well, y'all, I'm 33 years old. I'm almost 34, actually. I mean, it's only a couple months from now. And after all these years, am coming into my own. All right. So today we're talking about different ways we self-abandon. And let me tell you, we all do some version of this, because that is how we've learned to survive in the world. That's why we have insecurities. That's why media now is trying to correct it and be like, be confident, love your skin, Don't be a bitch to everybody because of their orientation or their race or whatever. Like, everyone's finally starting to be mindful of the fact that, like, oh, all these things are just you and you shouldn't be like self-abandoning to fit in. But there are still some ways that we have made ourselves small and made ourselves less than around other people. So let's identify. Here are a couple ways that we self-abandon. Firstly, we turn into perfectionists. So even though you're super hyper focused, even though you're really focused on yourself and your image to other people, all of that is energy focused outside of you. When you're a perfectionist, you probably overlook how you're feeling. And you sacrifice that for getting the best grade, being the best at work, for looking perfect, for saying everything perfectly. I don't know, for looking perfect in the eyes of other people. And on some level, you also believe that, that's also your belief system. I think perfect looks good like this, and this is how I want to present myself. But at the end of the day, you probably didn't even have time to think about, like, am I okay being imperfect for myself? Because you don't even put energy out just for you. It's mostly to be perfect in everything you do. And God, you leave yourself for expectations when you're a perfectionist. I am a recovering perfectionist. I am also a workaholic. And shit, it's come down to my body and my health. Like, I realized this past year I have this weird asymmetrical position with my hips and my shoulders, and like, I had no idea that is how badly, like, I was like asymmetrical. And the reason why I had no idea is because I wasn't even aware of my body enough, because I was too busy working and trying to impress people that way. Of course, I was always trying to fix it because I was still a perfectionist, but I never knew that was the exact issue because I also didn't dig into my body enough. Does that make sense? And then, okay. Another way that you are self-abandoning is you end up being in really codependent relationships. So a lot of the times, obviously, like, people need to have other people in their lives. And how are we supposed to survive just by isolating? We can't. But it's funny how people tell you both ways are bad. Like, don't be overly, like, attached to other people, but also don't overly isolate. What do you fucking do then? You find balance, obviously. But it's so hard to figure out. So another way we self-abandon is kind of what I alluded to before. I would maladaptively daydream. So I would kind of run away to a fantasy world where I pretended that the people around me accepted me for who I was, where I didn't feel like I had to work too hard. I also had like dreams about, like, I would listen to music and think of choreography and dances. I'd stage it in my head. I make it into movies. Also, right now, I mean, I'm pursuing like performance, so that kind of makes sense. But in my head, I was this person, and this was my life. This is where my art and my creative mind, my imaginations, and my feelings stayed alive. And then I think I became addicted to it, where it's just like after school, I would only want to go drive and put on music and daydream. Or I would do that and be alone in my room. I just wanted to run away from my present life and to go back to this fantasy where I was who I wanted to be. And I recently watched a YouTube video from this therapist who talked about how running away into fantasy world is a self-regulation technique, which makes sense. And all of these self-abandonment habits are self-regulation techniques. And she was saying, like, what I always thought, where it's like you want your inner child who wants to play, like it's they still want to be alive, and in some ways that maladaptive daydream is keeping that person, that little childhood heart alive. And it's not necessarily the worst thing you could do, but it still keeps you away from your reality and from moving and improving in your reality, from accepting that in order to become that person, you have to not just daydream your life away, basically. And I've always had mixed feelings about this unhealthy habit, because it's the reason why I still held on to the arts. It's the reason why I still have a vision, actually, because a lot of the times some artists just need to daydream. Some artists just use that as a way of their art. And who am I to say, like, some of these things might not be realistic, you know, if, like, I have a daydream about oh, I wanted to go be dancing with Beyonce. I mean, who says I can't? But also, is that everything, or can I just be dancing to Beyonce and that's enough? You know what I mean? And that's why I realize, like, I'll get into it more later, but like a lot of these habits I don't have to beat myself up for. And actually, as long as I sort of change around my expectations, as long as I can be happy with some version of my expectations of my daydream, I think I can move on and be okay. But okay, I'll get to that later. Other ways that we self-abandon. Oh God. People fucking do drugs. People, like, have addictions, sexual addictions. People have addictions to working. Whatever it is, they put all their energy into other things. I have cousins who haven't really done drugs. They are codependent on each other, but their biggest thing was they were always picking up hobbies, and like like incessantly. Like, it's not bad to pick up hobbies, but and sometimes that is a more healthy way of coping, but they were competitive as fuck. Every single month, they would be like, "Oh, we have to do a craft." The next month it'd be like, "Let's go skiing." The next month it'd be like, "Oh, my one cousin was like, I want to get my pilot's license." And then the month after that, it's like, "We're trying swing dancing." And they would, at my family dinners, always talk about how they found out they just had this natural knack for this, and they were just so great. And if you didn't listen to them, they would be like heartbroken. They'd be like, "Oh, you didn't hear me?" And it was just, and I realized they had this addiction to, well, basically achievement. And it wasn't enough to achieve at their workplace. They needed to find new ways to start learning, achieving, and then showing off to people. It was the weirdest addiction, but I think it was one. And then obviously there are addictions to drugs, to drinking, to partying, to, yeah, to being in codependent relationships. And then the workplace addiction, that's mine. I mean, it goes into perfectionism, but for me, in my way, I kept wanting to achieve. And I kept wanting to be like, okay, I'm going to start a business and everyone's going to love it, or I'm going to be really good at work, or okay, I don't want to think about anything else. I'm just going to work, or I'm going to work longer hours. And so I would just put all my energy into that. And like, it's weird, because what are we running away from? Like, what actually are we running away from when we self-abandon? Do I get into that yet? Well, I'll go into a little bit. We're running away from feeling trauma. That's really it. We're really just running away from any sort of negative feeling at all. And even if it's like a little bit of an upset, like, I think a lot of us had to calm down our triggers so much that we had to use these self-abandonment tactics because they were too hurtful. And maybe when we were 5, like, maybe we can handle more than we could have when we were like 5. But since we've practiced this habit since we were 5, it is hard to break, and it's hard to let yourself find those negative emotions again because you're so used to not having them. Okay, let me finish out other ways that we self-abandon. Basically, it's anything we use externally or anytime we just don't recognize ourselves. In general, when we make ourselves small, when we ignore our voice, when we don't create our own voice. Like for me, I feel like I halfway did this. Like I always kept, that daydream, that artist in me and I ran away to that world. But I also kept letting myself be upset, kept letting myself become upset whenever I was around people who dimmed my light or my voice. So I talked about my sister and my mom always being competitive with me, always kind of like demeaning anything I was doing, like wanting to be better than me. And in those moments, I left myself and I let myself be festered with anger at them. I let myself only listen to them, and I didn't let their thoughts like roll off me. It's hard to. It is very hard to. But I kind of held on to that and held on to that resentment instead of deciding, no, my voice is important. They're just jealous. And that's a shorthand for a lot of people. Like they say, like, when you're around an annoying ass person, they're jealous. Come on, just move on. And for me, it was very hard to just move on. And I think it's because I so badly wanted to make it work. Not even just that, but I thought I didn't think to create a reality where I would have been right, where I would have been justified and valid in the way that I was feeling. So I guess that's one main one. I didn't validate my feelings. I didn't consider my feelings. And I think that's sort of the core of all of this. I decided that somebody else's reality was more overpowering. I didn't fully believe it, but I decided like, oh, all egotistical people do, like, is try to control you. And if you're around an egotistical person, you are powerless. Which, in some ways, is functionally true. If you're around an egotistical person, it's hard to make it work. And in that instance, it is hard to be yourself, to be confident, to be your best you, because their reality will clash with it. But does that mean you yourself separate from that egotistical person? Does that mean that their reality is real for you when they're not there? No. So that was probably my biggest issue and most of our biggest issues. Like in general, we pick up these self-abandonment habits because we think we need to run away from the world at large who must all be operating this way. A lot of people are. A lot of people in power are. God, that fucking sucks. However, we always have it within our power to create the reality we want. And honestly, again, even though I need to be in reality and create it, I don't knock myself that much for creating my little fantasy world all the time, And okay, like there are some habits that are worse than others. I must say them drugs, man, them drugs. But but me abandoning my feelings, that's what led to I didn't realize that my body was so misaligned. I didn't realize that I'd turn into having digestive issues and health problems because I disregarded literal pain because I always wanted to prove that I was strong. I was strong enough to work hard hours. I was strong enough to just do hard workouts even though I could tell my body wasn't aligned correctly. I was strong enough to go do whatever I need to do on little sleep. Like, what was the point of that? To prove to other people that I could beat them in their version of reality, which is what? Like, their version of reality is strong means to hustle so hard that you can surpass your well-being. Like, why did I decide to play their game? Why did I need their validation? Why did I become small? Even though I knew it was against my inherent, what I valued. So all of that, I abandoned myself. But fuck, all of us kind of have. If we decided to wear something just because we thought it would look better for other people, even though we were uncomfortable, if we thought we had to lose weight, not just for our health, but for the acceptance of other people, if we had to wear makeup, if we had to get certain grades, if we had to speak a certain way, whatever it was, we've self abandoned in all these little and bigger habit ways. So, how do we get ourselves back? Y'all, this is a long time coming for me. It's so funny because I am literally finding my singing voice again. And I, the way that I did it though was like I had to go listen to this other Filipina girl who's amazing. She's on Broadway, love her. Eva Noblezada, shout out to you. You're an angel. And okay, it is a little bit of self abandonment to idolize another person, but maybe make them a bridge. If you are someone who holds on to inspiration, motivation, if you have a hero, if you want to be just like somebody, I think that is very healthy and that's not entirely self-abandonment. I mean, you know, people inspire people. And so I actually found when I started to be a huge fan of this Broadway star, I realized this is probably the healthiest I've idolized somebody because otherwise, I think I would be obsessed with, I don't know, maybe I'm not really obsessed with Beyonce, but to use her as an example, it's like, oh, I want to prove to Beyonce that I can be on her level, which is like, I picked out this person who, she's Beyonce. She's kind of arrogant, but that's her thing. And like, or any star who's a little bit arrogant, who seems hard to please, I want to be the one that pleases them. I want to be the best or really good in their eyes. And that would be a lot of my sort of obsession and fantasy. And like, I wanted to pick out the most popular person in the school. I wanted to pick out someone who's really uber critical. And I wanted to be the one that they were like, see, this person's the best above everyone else. And like, shit, that's toxic. That's self-abandonment. And that's also perfectionism, all the things. And I could tell that now that I want to be like somebody else, the whose values aren't like that, I'm moving in a better direction. And what's funny is I love this person's like sense of clothing style, how she interacts with people, and I literally realized that my vocal tone was very similar to hers. And I mean, that was the main thing. Because a lot of times when you sing, you kind of want to find someone with a similar voice to you so that you can understand, tune in to your voice and see the parameters of it. Of course, I don't want to go psycho and be like, I'm going to be exactly like her. But like, but I was really happy because I was starting to find my voice. And then I was like, oh, I'm starting to identify with this person who seems to be healthier and who isn't touting like perfectionism or hustling till you die. Like she's like a great sort of like, she talks a lot about mental health and theater and like not burning out and like, and it's very nice to have those positive role models, obviously, even though everyone's like, fuck you, you're always talking about mental health, everyone's talking about how they were raped, like fuck y'all for being so tired of that talk, but you want to hear more about criticism. I don't know about you, but anyway, okay, I'm getting to a point here. One way to stop self-abandoning is, well, make a bridge to the things that you're leaving yourself for, if that makes sense. Like, if you have this fantasy like I had of impressing people who probably weren't healthy to impress, maybe dig in and find other examples of healthier types of people that you want to impress or that you want to be like, or healthier people that you want to be around. Because I also would love to be like, a friend, like have a friend who's similar to hers, where I don't have to like be perfect around. And other ways to come back from self-abandonment. You do have to feel the uncomfortable, the hard feelings. So I think this is weird and you have to figure it out your own way, but I think you have to undo the habit of running away. Undo the, or at least dig into how can I feel and validate myself so that this doesn't feel like running away all the time. Like, let's say you tend towards drinking to deal with your problems. Well, first of all, I think physically it might help to go through one of those like support group programs so they could walk you through and kind of like help you mentally, physically, like rewire your body so it's not used to that addiction. But also implement different habits. If you need to cry, allow yourself to. Even do it in a support group with people who will validate you. You know, sometimes we need we do need some outside validation because a lot of the times for me it was hard to believe that anything I believed in, my actual voice was real because I didn't believe myself to be real a lot of the times. I mean, you're self-abandoning. So how do you know you're even like a lot of the times I would be like, I can't believe I'm real, meaning I wasn't sitting with myself. Sometimes you need, you know, just like a more positive, healthy influence to help you get out of your head and into step into reality. Like, so having a support group of people who really understand your trauma and can validate that what you went through is hard, the way you dealt with it makes sense, and who can help you believe that you can transform, that's huge. Support group, friend, obviously a therapist. And let me just say, I have actually had to switch therapists a couple of times. And it's okay if you need to because God, this would be a great time to be sponsored by Better Health, but like Better Help, I mean. But like I would have therapists who would just kind of be like, because I would ask them, how do I process my feelings? When am I allowed to be angry? When am I allowed to be sad? And they're just like, you care too much about what people think, just be confident. And if you've listened to any of the episodes of any of my podcasts, you know that that sounds like a band-aid to me. And you can't just already jump to being confident. You need to build trust and process your feelings, and that's how you build confidence. And so I think being mindful about being choosy, also just knowing, like, again, it's hard to self-validate at first, but I want you to look at the signs. If you are self-aware enough to realize you have self-abandoned, you can be self-aware enough to realize you deserve somebody who understands you. And I want you to really remember not everyone is on the same page because they haven't dealt with their own shit. Because they haven't dealt with shit in your way. You might need something more particular. I'm even learning this with healthcare professionals. Like, I would have therapists who'd be like, you're stupid, like, you're not working out incorrectly. And then I'd like go home with like more overuse injuries. And it's like, this person wasn't for me. But again, I would stay stuck on them and stuck with like this frustration at people. I think we need to learn how to gracefully, doesn't even have to be graceful, I don't know why I said that, but like we need to let go. We need to learn how to decide how to validate enough in ourselves that this person isn't for me. Another thing that's actually been hard for me, because mine is literally like getting my body back into alignment, sitting with yourself presently. So, yeah, that can be meditation, but a lot of the times with meditation, you might fall into a fantasy world. You might be in your brain. You might be overly aware of like all the shit around you. And you might be like, oh my God, I hear my fan. I hear people talking in the background. What I mean is be intentionally in your body. That's why I actually think things like yoga or like any sort of exercise is great because and like doing it by yourself or largely by yourself or where you get to focus on yourself, you know, like for example, you're in a workout class, but you're not distracted by other people too much. I think it's important because you want to be really present in your body and remember how it moves. Like, I've been realizing singing has been helping me with this too. I have not been breathing deeply, and I haven't been in the posture for the best breathing either. And if I realized like I hadn't done a complete push up in a while, that's because my back was so hunched over and my lower back was too overarched to be in the correct position to feel the full push up. And I just kind of disregarded that. And I'd be like, eventually I'll do a better push up. And it's like, no, I was not in the correct position. These things you might find out about yourself. Like, either you haven't moved your full range of motion or you haven't felt your full range of emotions. Like, maybe you have to sit with yourself and just be angry, but temporarily, learn to let go. But maybe you do need to sit and think about that person who wronged you. You need to write them an angry ass letter, never send it to them. You need to rant a little bit. You need to let yourself be able to cry. And then the next time, this is important, you need to build up a habit for when you think about them or when you get upset at all next time. Learn what it feels like to validate that for yourself and not necessarily have to prove that to other people. Like, you don't have to prove yourself all the time to other people, but how can you sit with this is a negative emotion without shutting it down and also without being erratic about it? But how, and this is where you get to be choosy. How would you like to show up for yourself? How would you like to nurture yourself? That is a really nice question that I really just came up with just right now. Actually, most of this I came up with right now, but that's a good question for me. Maybe I self-abandon myself all the time. Maybe I was so unhappy with everyone who's supposed to take care of me. Parents, healthcare professionals, boyfriends. But the question is, how do I show up and nurture me? And a lot of support groups, they'll call that, how do you reparent your inner child? How would you be your own loving parent? For me, I guess I can do that. So, how would you like to nurture yourself, Ariel? I think I would like to acknowledge that all of these hard feelings aren't like me malfunctioning. They're not being weak either. All this time I've wanted to prove myself. And it's just like I'm trying to prove that my pain is valid when I am always the one who's feeling it. And even though other people can't see it, other people can't feel it, it is mine. And they can't take that away from me. Just like I can't take away from them when they feel love, when they feel happiness. So in these times, I have to say, wow, that felt bad for me. But that's okay. But, I feel sorry for me. And I deserve better. And that's really it. Like, whenever, like, really confident people or, like, personal development people will sometimes try to yell at you to be confident, to accept yourself, to love yourself. It's like, I think you gotta be in this process of, like, nurture as well. And not just, a lot of people hear it as a Band-Aid, but you get to have your hard feelings and decide, today I need to have them. Today I need to lie down. Today I need to do less. I think you have to honor the fact that there are times when you're in negative feelings for a reason, in order to process, in order to realize that this person, this situation, this habit is not for you. Another way to come back to yourself, keep your promises and not lower your expectations, but allow yourself to meet expectations that you can. Like, I feel like again, with the singing thing, it's like, oh, I wanted to be as big of a star or something as Beyonce. And like, since I can never do that, other people can beat me or other people can always, be this or that or whatever. But I realize my voice as it is beautiful. The way that I'm performing now, even though it's not so big, I could always build it. But right now, God, this is beautiful. And I actually love being with myself at this level of performance that I have. And I need to be able to sit and appreciate this about me. Basically, anything that you're asking for from other people, can you do that for yourself? You're looking to be validated emotionally. You're looking to be treated better. You're looking to show up for yourself, or to have people show up for you. You're looking to be helped. Again, a lot of these things though, like for example, if you're a healthcare professional, I can't learn science to help myself all the time. But I can acknowledge that I feel pain. I need to show up for myself. And I think the expectation at the very least is I get to cheer myself on with unconditional love. And I think maybe that's what I've wanted all along. To be accepted and loved unconditionally from other people, and especially myself. And if you can hold on to that sense of self, then you can hold on to who you are, stand your ground around bitch-ass people, you know? And to build on that, lastly, make commitments to yourself that you keep. So, again, keep your expectations in check for this. For me, I have been finding that, I have been a person who's made plans, had goals, and been great at timelines and things for all those things for most of my life. And it wasn't that I didn't show up. It wasn't that I didn't put in the work. I think I would show up to work out all the time, and I'd give myself a plan for it, and even a plan for how to progress. I'd show up whenever I wanted to work on my voice, wanted to work on music. But there was always some sort of block to me feeling like I was progressing or even just focusing at all. And that block was always this energy that I had. Whether it was I kept feeling like I can't tune into myself, or I'm so bad at this, I'm not allowed to feel bad at this. Or I was hearing other people's voices who are invalidating, like, oh, you're doing that wrong. Why are you doing it wrong? Or you shouldn't be doing it wrong. Or I had all these blocks to progressing because of all these expectations of other people's energies. And I didn't sit and let myself just grow, just to be uncomfortable and know that that was the process and to nurture myself. So now I'm trying to rework my commitments to myself. Maybe I even put in less of a plan or less of a hard plan, and I just I'm lenient, and I'm like, I'm going to do this thing weekly. I'll show up and I will take one step. And then after that, I'll get used to the routine and I'll be able to grow more steps. It's about also growing endurance, growing a habit, growing your new habit where you show up for you. And if you're someone that daydreams, if you're someone that has dealt with some sort of addiction, just know that your self-awareness is everything, and it's a lot of what a lot of people aren't going to do. And you're putting in the work. You have so much self-awareness. You have the potential to really help other people, and obviously, firstly, yourself. So wherever you're starting from, it's amazing that you're starting. It's amazing that you got yourself to start changing, to be aware. For me, I could sit here and be sad about, oh, I'm almost 34 now, or I can be, and I'm just now learning how to do all these things. Or I can say, I am 33. I have made a podcast. I have changed the way I look at people, what I want from people. I have learned to listen to my emotions. I've really made strides in finding my creative voice again. And I'm not running away from myself. I'm not running away from other people. I am running to who I am. Okay. Well, I guess there'll be more on this in another episode. But for now, peace and love. Nurture yourselves. All right. Bye-bye.